Hi everyone, thanks for joining this session. My name is Nimrod Geva and I manage the KWIZ product group. Today I'm going to speak about one of our products for SharePoint Online, which is called KWIZ Forms. This is a forms and workflow solution, both for SharePoint Online and SharePoint 2019 server. Now, as you all know, there are many form design tools in the market for SharePoint and SharePoint Online. I used to work with InfoPath for a long time, and it was fine for me. Then came PowerApps, and of course there are other third-party design tools. I see one thing which is very similar in all of these design tools. They're all designed for power users. There is no way a non-technical user can get even near such a tool, which is simply overwhelming and also requires technical skills. Even more than this, even a SharePoint implementer, an experienced SharePoint implementer, unless you go through some serious InfoPath or PowerApps or any other tool training, he cannot work with it. And this means that the main problem, as we see it, remains. Every company who needs forms needs to have in-house or to hire form designers, which are power users, especially trained with this form design tool and workflow tool to implement forms for the entire company. Even the most simplest forms, now it's all going to IT, which needs to implement everything for everyone. So the main problem, the main bottleneck remains. And of course, the cost of producing these forms and maintaining these forms remains high because you need this skill of people. They need to be power users or developers sometimes. Now, KWIZ Forms, similar to all our apps, is designed for non-technical users. Our target audience are site owners. This can be a sales manager, this can be a marketing manager who owns a SharePoint site, which is their team's collaboration environment. And now they need forms. I'd like to mention a few differences, just a few examples that show how things are made much easier and non-technical in KWIZ Forms comparing to PowerApps, just to show you the differences between the target audience and how things are done. So let's look at some common examples. I think the most common example when implementing dynamic forms is the ability to implement a dynamic behavior where some fields appear or disappear depending on the user's actions in the form. So in this example, I have here a lead tracker form, and I'm clicking the lead type drop-down. So if I select the value of product license, for example, suddenly I see two additional fields, product and quantity, because they are relevant only if the selected lead type is product license. And if I select any other value here, these fields simply disappear because they are irrelevant. So this is an example of a dynamic behavior. And again, this is the most common requirement in forms. So looking at PowerApps, to implement such behavior, which is very common, requires you to use formulas. A hard-coded formula, of course, it will change for every field. In KWIZ Form settings pages, all you have to do is just create a rule. There are no formulas. So here in this example, you create a rule for the products field that says hide in these forms, the new item form, edit item form, and view form. And here's the condition: when lead type is not equal to product license. And of course, you can add additional conditions, but there's no code here. the user remains in the logic level where he just thinks about the rules. Here's another example. Many times you need in forms, in multi-tab forms, to have some tabs appear or disappear, again, depending on who's the current user and also depending on his actions in the form. So in this example, we see two tabs, the account details and the lead type. And once I click the Upsell checkbox down here, you see that a third tab called Upsell Info appears because it depends, it's relevant only if the Upsell checkbox is checked. To implement such a behavior again in PowerApps, you'll need to provide some formulas, some coding, where in KWIZ Forms, you have your tab and you just provide a rule with conditions. So this tab should be visible only when upsell is equal to checked. And I have here another condition. The current user belongs to the sales group. Another common example is cascading lookup fields, where one dropdown filters another dropdown, like country filters the state dropdown. So in PowerApps, you'll have to come up with a similar piece of code like the one you see now. While in KWIZ Forms, all you have to do is just configure the filtering criteria. So it's just two fields. I'm asking the city, the state field, to be filtered by the country field. It's that simple. So no coding, no formulas. Another common example is the ability to validate fields. And here I'm doing validation of one field, comparing to another field. So in this example, I want the next follow-up date field to be prior to the due date field. And once the user enters a date which is later than the due date, he gets this validation error. So to implement such a validation rule in PowerApps, you'll have to come up with this piece of code. While in KWIZ Forms, same as before, all you have to do is just create a rule. And this rule says that the next follow-up field must be less than due date field. And this is the error message that should be displayed to the user. Some more examples. Many times you need also to show or hide columns in list views, not just in the forms. In KWIZ Forms, in PowerApps, it's simply not possible because PowerApps is not dealing with list views, only forms. While in KWIZ Forms, same rules that you configure for forms, you can configure also for fields or columns in list views. So you can disable or you can hide columns in list views. And this works also in the grid view. So for example, if you want to disable, to gray out the price column in the grid view where users do bulk editing, of course it's not possible with PowerApps, but with KWIZ Forms you can do it very easily, just a simple rule. Another big difference between KWIZ Forms app and other form solutions for SharePoint is about the way it's implemented. Many of the form solutions that you'll find in the market are implemented as provider-hosted app, which means they run their server-side components on their cloud server. So, for example, when you fill out your form and submit it, the form is processed and rendered on the provider's cloud server and returned back to the user. KWIZ Forms app, similar to all our apps, is implemented as a SharePoint hosted app, which means it's 100% client-side code. Everything is processed on the user's browser. So there is no data, and especially your form data, sent out to our cloud server. So you can rest assured that your data never leaves your tenant. QuizCon Forms includes many features, but in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to focus on the end user experience. As I mentioned before, QuizCon Forms is designed for non-technical users, and that's the focus of this presentation. So instead of showing you fancy pre-configured, pre-designed forms with many workflow actions and so on, I prefer to start from scratch and show you the real experience and how much time it takes to configure some of the most common features that everyone is looking for in dynamic forms. Okay, so this is my lead tracker list. We have about 15 minutes, so let's just see that it's not configured. Yeah, this is the out-of-the-box SharePoint list form, a long one. And so after you install the QuizCon Modern Apps on your site, you'll see the QuizCon Apps toolbar button. Let's click it. And now I need to activate these apps on the current list. So I'm just clicking Activate. Now you see all the features that are available in the current list. And you can filter these features by various categories. For example, I want to see only the features that are included with the Forms Enterprise Edition. So these are the features. First thing I'm going to do in my form, I want to change the way it looks. And instead of this narrow and long form coming from the side, I want a big form with 3 tabs. And I want my own layout, my custom layout. So I'm going to click the form layout settings page. And first thing I need to decide how I want it to be displayed is tabs or as collapsible groups. I prefer tabs now, and let's start creating our tabs. So the first tab will be called Account Details. And now let's add some rows to my tab. So I added 1 row and I see 1 field. So let's add the account field. And now let's add another one. To add another one just near the account field, I click here and select the account contact field. That's it. Now let's add another tab. This one will be called lead type. And let's add some rows and fields. Now, see what I did here in the second line. First of all, as you can see, unlike many other tools, I don't need to decide on a fixed table structure with columns and rows. Everything is fluent. If I want to add another field in some row, it doesn't matter how many columns I have. I don't have any columns. There is no table here. Everything is fluent. So to add another column in the first row, I just click here. There I have another field, okay? So this is why I have 2 fields in the first row and I have 3 fields in the second row. Secondly, I wanted the 2 fields, product and quantity, to be aligned with published on site field, which is above it. So I don't have, again, to mess with table columns or with pixels. All I have to do is just grow this field or shrink it back. So you don't mess with the practical aspects of the form. All you have to do is just put your field, select the field, and whenever you want, if you want in the same row, just do it, and you can grow the field to be wider or shrink it back. The nice thing here is that you don't have to plan separately for mobile device or for desktop. The form is fully responsive. It will adjust itself depending on the target device. So let's add some additional fields. Okay, so I have my form ready, my tab ready, sorry, and I'm going to add a third tab, which will be displayed conditionally, not always, depending on the value selected in the upsell field here. That's what you saw in the beginning of my demo. So I'm adding a new tab, and let's call it Upsell Details. And this one is going to have just one row with two fields, Upsell Amount and Upsell Details. And now I'm going to add a condition to this group, to this tab. So I'm clicking here, Add Condition, and I want this group, this tab, to be displayed only if Upsell checkbox is equal to checked. That's it. So I have my three tabs. Let's see how they look like. Okay, so I have my first tab, which includes account and account contacts. I have my lead, and you see I have here 3 fields in a row and 2 fields in a row. And if I check the upsell checkbox, there I have my third tab. Okay, so we've done this part. Okay, now I want to make my form dynamic. Oh, before that, I told you that the form is fully responsive, right? So let's just see what happens to my form when I just narrow the window of the browser. You see, it fully adjusts itself to the size. So there is no need to create a separate canvas or separate design like I see in other tools. It's one design, no matter which device you're using, okay? Now, second thing I want to do is to make my form dynamic. So as you saw in my slides, I want to do two things here. You remember the product and quantity fields. I want them to appear only if the selected lead type is product license. For any other value that I select here, I don't want the product and quantity to be visible. Okay, that's a very basic dynamic behavior. So I'm going now to the form design, to the form settings pages. So I click here, configure. I can go also from the list view by clicking the QuizCom apps button. It's the same thing. Okay, so to make my form dynamic, meaning dynamically show or hide or disable fields in my form, I go to this settings page, which is called Dynamic Column Permissions. Okay, so I'm clicking the gear icon here. And as I explained, everything is about rules. I don't have to mess with field properties and formulas. So let's select the products field and let's add a new rule. So I want to hide this field. In the new edit and view forms, I could also select list views, but I'll leave it for now only to be applied in the forms. And now I'm adding a condition. So I want to hide the product field in these forms when lead type is not equal to product license. So only if it equals product license, the product field will be visible. In any other case, it will be hidden. And I want to add another rule for the quantity field, actually the same rule. So I want to hide it in the same forms under the same condition. So when lead type is not equal to product license, and I'm clicking save. And let's go back to our form and refresh it. Go into the lead type tab, and you see now the product and quantity fields are not visible. Only if I select product license value in the lead type, I see these fields. For any other value, they're gone. So it's that easy to create these rules. One more thing that I wanted to mention, the current rules that I set up, let's look at this one, are very simple. But of course, you can make the rule a lot more complex by adding additional conditions with and or operator. It doesn't have to depend only on other field values. You can also say, I want this to be applied only if the current user is in or not in some group, Active Directory group or SharePoint group. So you can create rules simple or as complex as you need. Okay, we have some time. Let's create cascaded fields. We have in the account details tab, we have two fields, account and account contacts. And both of them are lookup fields, but currently there's no connection between these lookup fields. So it doesn't matter which account you select, you see the same account contacts, okay? Now, of course, because there are lookup fields, each one is connected to a different list. The account is connected in this example to the customers list, and the account contact dropdown is connected to the contact list. And of course, between these two lists, there is a connection. Every account contact belongs to some account. We want this relationship to be reflected also in these two dropdowns. So what I'm going to do now is configure the account contact to be filtered by the account dropdown. So I'm going back to my QuizCom app settings, and this time I'm going to select the cascading lookup feature, this one. So I'm going to click here. And this settings page shows me all the existing lookup fields. Okay, and I want to set up the account contact field. And I want it to be filtered by the account field. But before that, there are several additional advantages in using the QuizCom cascading lookup fields. So first thing, unlike the out-of-the-box lookup field, which can be connected only to a local list on the same site, here you can connect your lookup field to a remote list on a different site. That's why you have this target site field here. So the account contact field is connected to customer contacts list. And here you got the filter settings. So there are several ways to filter this field. I'm going to talk about the one that we want to do now, which is filter by a column in this list. So we want to filter the account contact dropdown by the account dropdown. So to do that, so all I need to do is select the account field here and then say, okay, which field in the account contacts list I want to compare to this account dropdown. So I have in that list the field called customer. This is the field that connects every account contact to its account. And that's it. I click save and we're done. Let's refresh the form. And let's see now, if I try to select a contact now, it shows an empty list because there's no selected account. And when I select an account, I will see only that account contents. Okay, so it's that easy to create cascaded fields using QuizCon Forms. Okay, so this was a really quick demo, and I tried to show you just a few of the features of QuizCon Forms, but more importantly, the end user experience, the one who needs to create the forms and configure their layout and their dynamic behavior with the focus on non-technical user that will be able to do that. QuizCon Forms app, same as all QuizCon add-ons and apps, is available for free trial. All you have to do is to go to QuizCon website and go under Microsoft 365 to QuizCon Forms app, and there you'll see all the information needed, including the free trial and documentation. And in case you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at sales@quizcon.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.